in junior high, I remember one of my teachers telling me, "Everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing it is stupid." That quote has stuck with me until now and probably will for the rest of my life. You always hear stories about kids who don't apply themselves when it comes to school, but then when it comes to the tests, they get A's. Or just the opposite, the kids that try really hard and get A's on all the homework, but when it comes to the tests, they get C's or D's. Right now, schools mostly accommodate for 2 or 3 types of intelligences. But what about the 6 other types of intelligences? Kids have to be able to sit in a classroom with 25 to 30 other students, listen to the lecture and take notes, and be able to test on it by the end of the week. If they don't get a good grade, then they fail the class and are deemed failures by the school. But that same kid that just failed could be tremendous at other things, like putting a card together, or can play or sing any instrument that you put in front of him or her. Which gets me to my question. How should we judge intelligence? In my opinion, intelligence shouldn't just be based on how well you do on tests or even in school. Every person has different strengths and weaknesses. However, by judging every student or every person on the same criteria, those kids that could be tremendous at other things won't do them because they'll think that they're not intelligent enough. While I was researching my question, I researched what are the different types of intelligences, how can you teach using multiple intelligences, and should schools change from the traditional A-F system to account for different learning styles. The theory of multiple intelligences was illustrated in this book by Howard Gardner, a developmental psychologist, Frames of Mind, the Theory of Multiple Intelligences. He believed that the conventional concept of intelligence was too narrow and restrictive, and that measures of IQ often miss out on other intelligences that an individual may possess. A little while ago, I told you that schools mostly only account for 1 or 2 other types of intelligences, or learning styles. These learning styles are linguistic learners, logical mathematical learners, and spatial visual learners. Linguistic learners think in words and have highly developed auditory skills. They are most successfully taught by reading books and taking notes on a lecture. Logical mathematical learners think by reasoning and calculating. They are good at finding patterns and relationships between numbers and data and can be taught through logic games, concepts, and investigations. Spatial visual learners tend to learn by images and pictures. They are most likely very observant and like drawing or watching movies to figure things out. Schools, however, don't account for bodily kinesthetic learners, musical learners, interpersonal learners, and intrapersonal learners. Bodily kinesthetic learners have a keen sense of body awareness and enjoy moving and touching things. Hands-on learning, as well as role-playing, is how these learners learn most effectively. Musical learners think through rhythms and melodies. They like to study with music in the background and can be taught by turning lessons into lyrics and speaking rhythmically. Interpersonal learners think by bouncing ideas off of other people. These students learn through interaction and can be taught through group activities, seminars, and hands-on learning with a mentor. Intrapersonal learners think deeply inside themselves and understand their interests and goals. These learners tend to shy away from others, have wisdom, intuition, motivation, and confidence. They can be taught through independent study and self-paced projects. When I asked students if they knew their type of intelligence, 46.7% of them said that they did. If kids don't know their intelligence, then they don't know which ways will work best for studying, and they can get frustrated that those ways aren't working for them. Teaching kids based on their intelligence could be a start to helping them. However, every kid is different. Some kids like sports, while others prefer acting and music. Some kids stay up super late every night, while others go to bed early and wake up early. And some like school, while others dread coming every day. Even though every kid is tremendously different, they still get graded on the same criteria every day. Imagine a kid who turns in every homework assignment, participates in class, and respects all their teachers and classmates. Now imagine the kid who bombs the test. Now imagine a kid who aces the test, but messes around in class, texts friends, and finds homework annoying. both get a grade of an 85% or a B. But what does that number tell you about what that kid knows, how he or she behaves, or what that kid needs to improve on? Schools shouldn't grade their students based on how well they did in school, but rather how much effort they put into it and their understanding of the material. In traditional grading systems, grades are based on students' achievements, attitude, responsibility, effort, and behavior. By combining all of these things into one letter grade, it can make grades seem subjective instead of objective and precise. If someone proposed combining measures of height, weight, diet, and exercise into a single number or mark to represent a person's physical condition, we would consider it laughable. How could the combination of such diverse measures yield anything meaningful? Grades motivate high-achieving students to get higher marks, and forcing students to compete for the highest grade in the class can strike competitiveness and disappointment. However, on the other end of the performance spectrum, kids that get discouraged can feel like no matter what they're doing, they're never going to be good enough to get an A. It's very important to keep hope alive, one teacher said in an article about grading reform. Once kids give up, you've lost them. By removing the A through F grading spectrum, it would allow kids to be more confident and not discouraged when it came to school. Kids have different strengths and weaknesses, but by judging kids on their ability to learn material and test on it by the end of the week, the kids that don't have school-related intelligences seem to struggle. By teaching kids and not grading them on A through F, but on effort and knowledge of what they learned, schools would have a lot higher graduation rates and would be more effective overall. I made a survey asking kids in our grade what they thought about grading kids on an A through F basis. One kid said no, and that grades don't necessarily show how smart you are, just how well you can complete a test or worksheet the way the teacher needs it. Another kid said the same thing, and that majority of skills we learn in school are unrelated to life, and being influenced by a negative way of thinking about ourselves at a young age, aka bad grades, can be very detrimental to teenage years. They believe that grades can affect overall health, causing stress, worry, anxiety, and sometimes even mental illness such as depression. Grades do not determine your worth, but definitely feels like it during school. However, most of the kids said that we should grade on an A through F basis because they don't know how else we could do it. Next time you don't get the grade that you thought you deserved or feel like you're a failure, just stick with it and try your hardest because you're going to do great things and you don't need straight A's to do them.